So, Ray, it turns out that the Chinese embassy and the Chinese government is after Jay, but they've decided to go after you again for something a little different. You want to talk about that?
I can't understand why I'm so harmless. so actually, so this is as I we kind of brought it up with Jay. As many times as sort of I've been in the spotlight from various places, whether it be Chinese state media or sort of certain acolytes in the Philippine ecosystem or whatever. This is the first time I've really sort of had been directly targeted by the Chinese embassy. And it was incidental to a report that we put out, or that I actually wrote a few days ago, about the influence of the Chinese embassy directly with Mandarin-language media outlets in the Philippines, which appear, the more that we stare at them, to have been almost entirely sort of taken over in a lot of ways by the Chinese, sort of state propaganda system. And, we gave some examples of how this works and the kinds of things that these outlets are now saying that are directly, sort of relate back to Chinese state interest, advocating for the absorption of Taiwan into the People's Republic of China, or advocating for China's position on the West Philippine Sea, those kinds of things, or even just, rebroadcasting Chinese state media without, no questions asked, no context provided, no critical thought applied. And then, we even sort of talked about how one of these media outlets, United News, actually is led, its chief editor is also the Secretary General of the Philippine Council for the Promotion of the Peaceful Reunification of China, which is a very long way of saying a United Front operation in the Philippines that is trying to promote the absorption of Taiwan into China. And so, kind of putting all of this together and saying, look, something is going on here in Chinese language media in the Philippines that is targeting Filipino citizens. And that earned me several broadsides, I will say, from the Chinese embassy.
Well, transparency is your mantra, and apparently all that light is being disturbing, causing maybe a little melanoma. Um, but we saw some of this Chinese influence on Chinese language media when we were in Australia,
Yep.
and Australia subsequently passed some legislation, which we've been talking about,
Yep.
to require more transparency.
Yeah. And in fact, you and I wrote an article about that for the Australian Strategic Policy Institute about last month, talking about how the Philippines can actually learn from Australia's experience, which has not been perfect by any means. And we're not saying that Australia is the big brother should teach the little brother. This is more, Australia has been down this road and has learned some lessons, both positive and negative. It's a great opportunity to sort of pass those on to another democracy that's finding itself sort of in the midst of all this, of some very similar issues.
Well, I think it behooves all democracies to work more closely together, share information about how to defend ourselves against these sort of influences.
Yeah, and really, I think it's one of those things. Chinese language media. I think the more that I look at this problem, it's clear that China has really made a concerted effort to bring all of this sort of to heel. And so the number of Chinese language media which are actually truly independent seems to be diminishing every year. And so I think probably all democracies need to take a look and say, what is going on with our Chinese language media? And one of the reasons that they don't, in many cases, is because nobody, so few people understand Mandarin anyway, that it's hard to know what they're saying. And I don't speak Mandarin, so I rely, like so many other people, on things like Google Translate and AI to tell me what's going on in Chinese language media, and I've been shocked.
Well, the other issue, of course, is so-called, freedom of the press, and they should be able to publish what they want, which I agree with, but just be transparent about who you're getting the information from.
Yes, the information, and if any, guidance and direction, and certainly funding, right? So all of that should be open to the public, for the public to see. And again, as you say, if people want to run advertisements saying that China should own the entire South China Sea and the Philippines should, restrict its activities to its internal waters, under the Philippine Constitution, that's legal. People can have political opinions, but we should just know where the money comes from. We should know if there are direct contacts or direct, directions coming from the Chinese Communist Party to these entities that are in your own country. Those are the kinds of things I think every country needs to think about. How do I balance freedom of expression, freedom of speech, all the freedoms we enjoy in democracies, with the need to protect ourselves against exploitation by a hostile foreign power?
This is why it's such a lovely irony that the Chinese accuse you of being an agent of the U.S. government with huge pots of money, which you don't share with me, by the way.